Today, when we sit comfortably wrapped in blankets on winter nights with a heater running and a warm cup of tea in hand, we probably never think about how our ancestors thousands of years ago endured this same harsh nature, these same freezing nights. In today's discussion, we'll go back to that distant past, the Stone Age, when humans had no electricity, no solid houses, no factories making warm clothes. They had only intelligence, courage, and an unyielding determination to survive alongside nature. The Stone Age refers to that vast period of time spanning from roughly 2.6 million years ago to around 3000 to 4000 BCE. This long span is generally divided into three parts: the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic periods. Throughout this entire time, humans gradually learned how to adapt to nature, especially mastering the skills needed to survive harsh winter nights. In today's video, we'll explore in detail where they lived, how they made fire, what they wore, what they ate, how they kept watch through the night, how they passed the time telling stories, and how they stayed connected to one another to get through these difficult times. First, it's important to understand, Stone Age winters were far harsher than today's. Especially toward the end of the Paleolithic period, the Earth went through multiple ice ages. During these times, vast portions of Europe, Northern Asia, and North America were covered in ice. Temperatures dropped far lower than today. In some places, nighttime temperatures fell to -20 to 30 degrees Celsius. Surviving in this environment was no easy task. Blizzards, fierce winds, long dark nights, and the fear of ferocious wild animals all combined to make winter nights a constant battle with death. Those who lost this battle either froze to death, starved, or fell prey to some savage animal. So it can be said that winter was the greatest test for Stone Age humans. But humans didn't give up. Gradually, they learned how to conquer this terrifying environment. And this very process of learning is what set humans apart from all other animals. Shelter. The first and most important thing needed for surviving winter nights was finding a safe, warm shelter. In the early Stone Age, humans chose natural caves as their primary shelter. Caves were a blessing from nature. Their thick stone walls kept out the cold outside air, while the interior temperature remained relatively stable. However, not all caves were habitable. People chose caves very carefully, ones where rain or snow couldn't directly enter, where the entrance could be kept small so less cold air would get in and wild animals couldn't easily attack, and from which the surrounding area could be observed. France's Lascaux and Spain's Altamira, these famous caves, prove that humans used caves not just as shelter, but also as centers of their cultural and spiritual life. But natural caves weren't available everywhere. Especially in flat tundra regions where there were few trees or rock caves, humans learned to build their own shelters. This is where the remarkable discovery comes in: dwellings made from mammoth bones. Various archaeological sites in Ukraine and Russia have revealed structures where huge mammoth bones and tusks were used to build a framework over which animal hides were spread. This hide covering trapped wind and snow, creating a warm environment inside. Inside these huts, the floor was covered with dry grass, leaves, or animal fur so the cold ground wouldn't touch the body directly. Sometimes the ground was dug down slightly to build a lower dwelling because the lower layers of soil stay warmer than the surface and also provide protection from wind gusts. An important point: Stone Age people never lived alone. They lived in small bands or groups, typically 20 to 50 people together. On winter nights, this group living was an essential survival strategy. Sleeping huddled together allowed body heat to keep everyone warm, a literal, natural method of surviving together. Fire. If we had to name the single most important discovery for Stone Age survival, it would undoubtedly be fire. The controlled use of fire is one of the greatest revolutions in human history. Archaeological evidence shows that ancient human species like Homo erectus learned to use fire as far back as roughly 1 million years ago, and evidence of fire control and preservation dates back around 400,000 years. Early on, humans likely gathered burning wood from forest fires or lightning strikes and carefully kept it burning. Later, they learned how to deliberately create fire. There were two main methods. First, the friction method. A dry piece of wood was rapidly spun or rubbed against another wooden stick to generate heat until a small spark formed. A tool called a bow drill, a bow-like device, was used to spin the wooden stick rapidly. Second, the spark-striking method. Flint stones were struck hard against stones like pyrite or malachite to produce sparks. These sparks were directed on dry grass, moss, or powdered tree bark, then blown on to ignite a flame. Once fire was lit, keeping it from going out was the main challenge, since relighting it was time-consuming and difficult. So every group had specific people whose job was to stay awake in shifts through the night, adding wood to the fire so it never went out. This task was often given to elders or children, since it was physically less demanding but extremely important. Around the fire, people usually built a circle of stones called a hearth. This stone circle concentrated the fire's heat and prevented it from spreading. Archaeologists have found traces of such ancient hearths at many sites, thousands of years old. Fire's importance on winter nights was multifaceted. First, it kept the body and shelter warm. Second, it protected against ferocious animals like wolves, bears, or tigers, since most animals fear fire. Third, food cooked over fire was easier to digest and provided more energy to the body, essential for fighting off the cold. Fourth, firelight provided visibility during dark nights, helping people continue their work. And fifth, fire was the center of social gathering. People sat around it to tell stories, sing songs, and make decisions. Clothing. Along with fire, appropriate clothing was another crucial way to protect the body from cold. Early on, humans may have simply wrapped raw animal hides around themselves, but they gradually learned techniques to process hides properly. After skinning a hunted animal, the meat and fat were first cleaned off using sharp stone scrapers. The hide was then softened and made durable through various natural methods, such as rubbing it with animal brain or fat, sun-drying, and smoke curing. Smoke-cured hides became water-resistant and lasted a long time. Around 40 to 50,000 years ago, humans learned to make needles from bone and teeth. These needles had small holes through which thread made from animal sinew or plant fiber was passed. This discovery brought a massive change to human history because it allowed people to move beyond simply wrapping hides around themselves to sewing fitted clothing tailored to the body. This sewn clothing covered every part of the body, hands, feet, head, far more effectively than loose hides, providing much greater warmth. Researchers believe that people in Ice Age Europe and Siberia in particular wore multiple layers of clothing, soft fur-lined hide on the inside, a thick fur coat over it, hats, gloves, and boot-like foot coverings. At the Sungir archaeological site in Russia, a roughly 30,000-year-old grave was found containing thousands of beads that had once been sewn onto clothing. By analyzing the position of these beads, scientists have inferred that people of that era wore something like modern jackets, trousers, and boots. At night, people used thick animal hides or fur coverings as blankets. Mammoth, rhinoceros, bear, or reindeer hides were especially valuable, being thickly furred and very warm. Multiple hides were sewn together to make large blankets that an entire family could wrap themselves around while sleeping together.
Food storage. Storing enough food was critically important for winter survival, since plants died off and hunting became difficult in the cold, so people began preparing for winter during summer and autumn. Various methods were used to preserve meat. First, smoke drying. Meat was cut into thin strips and hung over the smoke of a fire so it would dry out and not rot for a long time. Second, ice storage. In cold regions, people dug pits in the ground and stored meat there, with nature's cold temperature acting like a natural freezer. Third, the use of salt or herbs. In some regions, people used natural salt to preserve meat. Fruits, nuts, and grains were also dried and stored. Especially in the Neolithic period, when agriculture began, grains could be stored for long periods in clay pots or pits. Even in snow-covered regions, some hunting continued through winter. Reindeer, bison, and other large mammals moved in herds during winter, and people tracked their movements to hunt them. Animal footprints were easily visible in the snow, which was advantageous for hunters. At night, the whole group would eat together around the fire. This communal meal wasn't just about filling stomachs, it was also an important moment for strengthening social bonds. Simple but nutritious meals of cooked meat, dried fruit, and stored grain gave their bodies the energy needed to stay warm through the night. Nighttime activities. Many might assume Stone Age people simply slept through winter nights, but the reality was far richer and more varied. Long winter nights were times of social, cultural, and creative activity. Storytelling around the fire was one of the main forms of entertainment and education for Stone Age people. Elders told the young about hunting techniques, tales of danger, the history of ancestors, and the mysteries of nature. Since writing hadn't yet been invented, oral tradition was the only way to pass down knowledge. Through these stories, children learned which animals were dangerous, which fruits were safe to eat, and how to read changes in weather. Archaeological digs have uncovered flute-like instruments made of bone, roughly 40,000 years old. In Germany's Hohle cave, a flute made from a vulture bone was discovered. This proves that Stone Age people had an interest in music. At night, around the fire, they expressed joy through singing, rhythmic clapping, or dancing, building a sense of unity within the group. Such collective activities helped relieve stress and maintain morale during harsh winter conditions. On long winter nights, especially when going outside was difficult, people spent time on artistic activities. The remarkable paintings found in France's Lascaux and Chauvet caves and Spain's Altamira cave, depicting bison, horses, mammoths, and other animals, were likely created during such leisure time. They used natural pigments like red and yellow ochre and black charcoal to create these paintings. Some researchers believe these paintings were also connected to religious or spiritual beliefs. Making small sculptures and ornaments from bone, teeth, and stone was also a popular activity. The famous Venus figurines, small sculptures of female figures, were likely created during such nighttime leisure as well. At night, especially when daytime hunting or gathering wasn't possible, people spent time making and repairing tools. Sharpening stone knives and spear points, fixing broken tools, making new needles or hooks, these tasks were done by firelight. This was both necessary work and an opportunity for skill sharing, where the experienced taught the young tool-making techniques. Watch and safety. The risk of wild animal attacks was always present on winter nights, so groups maintained a rotating watch system. One or two members would stay awake, keeping an eye on the surroundings, tending the fire, and alerting everyone at the first sign of danger. This duty was generally shared in rotation, so everyone could get some rest while safety was still ensured. This story of how Stone Age people survived winter nights teaches us about humanity's extraordinary capacity for adaptation, intelligence, and social solidarity. Without any modern technology, through observation, experience, and mutual cooperation alone, they conquered one of nature's toughest tests, the freezing winter night. Shelter in caves or huts, the warmth of fire, clothing made from animal hides, stored food, and, most importantly, care and cooperation for one another. All of this together is what allowed them to survive, multiply, and gradually laid the foundations of today's civilization. Today, as we lie comfortably in our beds on winter nights, we should pause to think. This comfort, this safety, is the fruit of thousands of years of human struggle, innovation, and care for one another. The stories, songs, and struggles of those people sitting around Stone Age fires is what built the foundation of our existence today.